So on number 14, what you're not told is that we have a four-sided figure ABCD and that the diagonals meet at point E. So that was done in a previous problem. So we have a four-sided figure known as ABCD where the diagonals meet at point E. So at least we know here that we have ourselves some type of maybe even a kite. But because it is, I'm going to go ahead and say it's a rhombus. It's a parallelogram with perpendicular diagonals. Oh, sorry, AED. We don't know that angle, do we? Let me erase this one. That's BEC. We know AED. No, true, it doesn't matter, but let's do what it says. AED is 90 degrees. So we have perpendicular diagonals. Now we know this much is 3x plus 7, and BE is 5x minus 2, and CE is 5x minus 7. So because this is a parallelogram, we know that opposites, or rather that the diagonals get bisected. So these two diagonal lengths must be equal. So it's the property that all parallelograms have that the diagonals get bisected that allow us to write down this equation that 3x plus 7 has to equal 5 times x minus 7. Okay, that comes from the fact that the diagonals are bisected in every parallelogram. So we can solve this equation for x. We'll add 7 to both sides, giving us 14. We'll subtract 3x from both sides, giving us 2x over here. Sorry, that looks dilapidated. Let's do it right. So solving this equation gives me an x value of 7. So how does this help us? Well, if we plug 7 back in here, we can figure out what the diagonal lengths are for our rhombus. So 3 times 7 plus 7 gives me 28 here and 28 here. And if I plug in 7 into 5x minus 2, 5 times 7 is 35, minus 2 is 33. Now I still have a right triangle, so I can use my buddy Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what one of these lengths are. So let's do that. 28 squared plus 33 squared equals, I guess that's side AB, isn't it? But one of the sides of your triangle. Okay, so let me get out my calculator real quick. So according to my calculator, 28 squared is 784, and 33 squared is 1089. So if I add these two things together, I get 1873. So my final thing would be to take the square root of both sides. And I get a side length of 43.28 units long. And because it is a rhombus, all 4 of them are equal, so I'll just times this by 4 and get 173.12 as the perimeter of my rhombus. So we use the property to set up an equation to solve for x. We plug that back in to find some lengths of our diagonals. We then apply the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what one side length is, and then we multiply it by 4 to find the perimeter.